Chapter 21. Out of the Frying Pan. The clank of a heavy key in the lock of the door woke Biff the next day. He started to yawn and stretch the kinks from his shoulders and legs. Abruptly he sat up. It could be the cook. Biff's hopes dimmed when the man entered. Again it was the same old servant, well protected by an armed guard. Biff looked at the Ancient One. His face was expressionless. Uncle Charlie shrugged his shoulders at Biff's questioning look. "Don't let it get you down, Biff. We haven't lost yet. Maybe at the noon meal perhaps we'll get some word then. Wish Muscles were here. If he were, we could overpower the guard and make a break for it." "Muscles? What made you think of Muscles all of a sudden?" Biff clamped his open hand on his head. His jaw dropped as a thought struck him. "I completely forgot to tell you. Muscles is here, in China, in Jaraminka." "Where'd you leave him?" Uncle Charlie decided details could be explained later. "Back at a spring, just west of the city. I hope he got my message. I tried to tell him he was hiding, but I'm sure he could hear us. That if we weren't back in 4 hours, then we'd been led into a trap." Biff's words rushed out in one jumbled sentence. "That's the best news I've heard yet, Biff. Muscles is a good operator." "But what could he do? He'd be spotted in a minute," Biff said. "Haven't got the answer to that one," Uncle Charlie replied. "But I'd bet on Muscles in any situation. He bulldogs in where angels fear to tread." The morning hours dragged. As noon approached, Biff became more and more restless. "Wish something would happen, anything. I wonder why Ping Lu hasn't sent for us." "Playing a waiting game, Biff," his uncle replied. "The longer he keeps us here with no word, the more tense and nervous we'll get. He knows that. Uncertainty, waiting, not knowing what move the enemy will make next, is one of the surest ways of making a man reach his breaking point. And your being here, he reasons, will make me twice as jittery." The hour of noon came and passed. No one came to the prison room. Biff was wondering how near his breaking point was when, shortly after 1 o'clock, the now familiar rasp of a key in the door was heard. "Make it be the Ancient One's grandson," Biff said half aloud. The others were praying for the same thing. The door swung inward. Whether the new servant was the grandson, Biff didn't know. But it was a different man. He brought a tray of food over and placed it beside Tueo Kwang. Biff thought he saw the man's lips move, but he couldn't be sure. The servant left. The door was locked behind him. Biff looked at Chuba. "Did he say anything?" asked the Ancient One. Chuba spoke softly, rapidly to the old man. The old one's reply was a single sentence. Chuba translated. "Tonight when the clock makes the 12 strikes." "That's all? Didn't give you any details?" "That's all Ancient One tell Chuba. I think that all grandson tell the Ancient One." Never had Biff known a day to pass so slowly. The suspense became unbearable. Charlie Keene tried to calm Biff down. "I think you'd be better off if you'd try to rest. Pacing back and forth isn't going to make the time go by any quicker. Get Chuba to teach you the Oriental art of patience." "Rest? Who can rest at a time like this?" Biff replied. Then he was ashamed at the angry tone in his voice. "I'm sorry, Uncle Charlie. I didn't mean to. I understand, Biff. But you may need all your strength when midnight comes. Try stretching out for a little while." Biff took his uncle's advice. His mind was in a turmoil as he lay on the hard wooden bench, his cupped hands beneath his head serving for a pillow. Sleep would never come, he told himself. The next thing he knew, he was being gently shaken. Uncle Charlie was bending over him, grinning. "Almost midnight, Biff. Better come alive." "Midnight?" Biff sat up in astonishment. He couldn't believe it. "But what about supper? Did I sleep right through it?" "No one brought anything tonight. Don't know why." Charles Keene picked up the kerosene lamp which gave the room its only light and blew it out. "If anything is going to happen, it would be better if the guards thought we were asleep." They waited in the darkness. There was no conversation, but the tension in the room was so strong it seemed as though you could touch it like a physical thing. Biff knew he could feel it. Biff's hopes went high and low like a playground swing. Suddenly his ears caught a strange noise. It came from the far end of the corridor through which Biff and Chubba had been led to Ping Lu. The noise grew louder. Shouts were heard. Running feet could be heard in the corridor. Biff sprang to the barred window of the door. He peered into the dimly lighted hall. The guard was gone. Now the cries became louder. "Chubba, can you make out what's being said?" Chubba came to the door. He put his head close to the bars. "Fire! Much shoutings of fire! Fire in kitchen." In the kitchen, where the grandson served as a cook. This must be it. Moments passed. Heavy footsteps were heard in the hall. Biff, his uncle, and Chubba crowded towards the door. Only the Ancient One remained where he was, seated on the far wall bench. He sat quietly, waiting. The sound of running feet came nearer. A figure skidded to a stop by their door. Behind this figure stood what was certainly the biggest Chinese in all the Orient. The key turned. The grandson came in. Behind him came the giant. Under an almost concealing broad-brimmed hat, the Oriental was grinning widely. "Muscles, how did you get here?" Biff and Charlie shot the question at their friend in the same breath. "No time for an answer now. We got to make with the feet. There's enough excitement in the kitchen now to cover our escape." The grandson was at the side of the Ancient One. He helped him to his feet. "Hold it," Muscles called out. "Let me see if the coast is clear." He leaned out the door. "Looks okay. Uh-oh, hold it. A guard's coming along. I'll take him." And he did. As the guard reached the door, Muscles' huge arm snaked out. He grabbed the guard by the collar and lifted him by one hand into the room. With his other hand, he struck the guard a chopping blow, and the guard went limp without uttering a sound. Charlie Keene caught him as he slumped over. "Stack him in the corner, Charlie. Might be another one coming along." Muscles was right. Another guard came trotting down the hall and received the same treatment. "Two down. How many to go?" Muscles was enjoying himself. "More guards coming," Chubba whispered excitedly. "Two of them this time," Muscles said. "Makes a more even match." The giant mechanic waited until the two were in the corridor a pace beyond the door. He jerked the door open, pounced on the two guards, and in a swooping motion cracked their heads together. He dragged them into the room. "Muscles, look, let's put these four on the benches. Anybody looking in will think it's us sleeping," Biff suggested in a whisper. "Smart," Uncle Charlie agreed, nodding. The unconscious guards were carefully posed as drowsy prisoners. Chubba had taken a position just outside the door as this was being done. "No more guards coming," he called softly. The four prisoners left their cell. Muscles motioned to the grandson for the keys. He turned the lock. "Don't know whether you'd call that a fair exchange," he said, "but it's an even one. Come, we must lose no more time." The grandson took the lead. The others followed. They passed through the room where Ping Lu had held court. A door on the other side of the room led to another corridor, this one narrow and shorter. "Hope he knows where he's going," Biff said. "He ought to. This used to be his home. He grew up here," Muscles replied. At the end of the corridor, their path was blocked by another door. The grandson tried it. It wouldn't yield. "No keys," he said. "Okay then, stand back." Muscles took 6 steps away from the door. Then, with a bull-like charge, he hurtled his powerful body against it. The door sprang from its hinges, fell flat on the ground outside, with Muscles sprawling on top of it. It took only seconds to reach the stone wall. The Ancient One was helped over. Biff turned as he crossed the wall. One end of the house was ablaze. Figures could be seen running frantically around, casting weird dancing shadows. As Biff watched, he saw 4 men leave the light of the blaze and come on a run to the place in the wall they had just crossed. "Hurry!" Biff shouted. "They're after us!" Chapter 22. Hong Kong and Points East. The party moved swiftly through the night. The grandson never hesitated. He knew every bend and turn in the path. Suddenly he stopped. "We must rest a few minutes," he said. "Honorable grandfather is old. He cannot stand this pace." "But we've got to keep going," Biff insisted. "I saw 4 men leave the fire and come after us." "Fear not, my friend. I think I know who they are, but stay here. I'll go back down the path and make certain," the cook said. The grandson vanished in the night. Biff felt sure that at any moment the party would be jumped by pursuing guards. Then he heard voices. The grandson came back, followed by 4 men. "My brothers and cousins," the grandson said. "They are more grandsons of the old lord. One of them is brother to your friend, Ling Tang." Muscles stepped into the group. "Sure, I know these guys. They're okay. These are real members of the House of Kwang. I made that double-crosser Chan Li take me to them. We worked out the whole escape. This fellow," Muscles pointed to the grandson servant, "he started the whole thing, set the kitchen on fire. Then he grabbed the keys and led me to your room. The others stayed back to watch the guards. Held some of them back all right. Must have been more than 20 on duty." "We can go on now," the grandson said quietly. "The Ancient One has rested." 2 grandsons came to the side of the old man. Each placed a supporting arm around his waist. The party continued on its way. Except for short, regular rest periods, they kept going all night. As dawn broke, the party stopped for a lengthier rest. All were near exhaustion from the excitement and the steady pace they had kept up. The old one slept like a baby, held in the arms of one of his grandsons. They rested most of the morning. It was far safer to travel at night. On the second day, as they reached a safer distance from Jaraminka, they continued toward the plateau where Jack Hudson was to pick them up. In turn, the grandsons went ahead to make certain no one was lying in wait for them. "Biff, are we anywhere near the spot where you saw all that construction?" Uncle Charlie asked. "We should be," Biff replied. "We should be nearing the valley soon. What do you think, Chuba? And you, Muscles?" "Chuba think we reach it right over next hill." "I'll trust Chuba's judgment," Muscles chimed in. Chuba was right. The valley was over the next hill. They had reached it at a point below where it rose steeply to the metal fence. "The rest of you wait here," Charles Keene ordered. "I'll make a quick trip for a fast look-see." "And I'm with you," Biff said quickly. His uncle gave him a look, hesitated for a moment, but apparently decided not to protest. "But Charlie," Muscles started to say. "No buts about it. Come on, Biff." Uncle and nephew climbed the slope. Biff found the opening in the fence. They crawled underneath and reached the rim of the huge amphitheater. Uncle Charlie stared down at the activity for minutes. He took in every detail, storing the information in his mind. A nodded signal told Biff they were going back. Once down on the floor of the valley, Biff asked his uncle what he thought the construction was. "I'm almost certain, Biff, that they're building a rocket launching site." "Like Cape Canaveral?" His uncle nodded his head. "I was at Canaveral at its beginning, saw the place grow. That work back up there is much the same type of construction. Still in its earliest stages, somewhat crude. Be a long time before they can try a moonshot, or any other kind." "Is knowing about this important?" "Important? You just bet it is. News of this development is vital. It's the biggest, most important information Uncle Sam has had out of China in years. You really found something, Biff." Shortly after noon on the second day since their escape, the party reached the plateau where Muscles had been landed by Jack Hudson. "This is it," Muscles said. "If Jack gets my signal, we'll be away and winging back by dark. Here, Chuba, take the end of this wire and scamper up that tree. Attach it to the highest limb you can reach." The antenna was connected to the portable transmitter. The tree's height increased the distance of transmission possible. Ground transmission would have limited the signal. "All is okay, Muscles," Chuba called down. Muscles picked up the hand mic. He snapped on a button. A slight hum could be heard. Muscles turned to the anxiously waiting group. "Let's hope I get through. I can't repeat my signal more than once. It may be picked up by the enemy." He grinned at them. "Well, here goes." Muscles held the mic close to his mouth. "There's gold in these high hills." He waited 10 seconds, repeating, "There's gold in these high hills." He snapped off the transmitter. That was our prearranged signal. It tells Jack Hudson that I found you and we're all set to come out. If he got my signal, he's on his way to the plane right now, I hope. I hope. I hope. It's been on the runway, warmed up around the clock, ever since he got back. Well, we'll know in about 2 hours, Uncle Charlie said. Jack did get the signal. Almost exactly 2 hours after Muscle's signal, the faint hum of a plane was heard. It grew louder and then came into sight. It winged in on the prayers of the whole group, the most welcome sight Biff had ever seen. Farewells were short. The moment the plane touched down, the Ancient One was put aboard. The others followed fast. The last Biff saw of the Ancient One's grandsons was a picture he would keep in his heart and mind forever. The 5 grandsons stood in a line, facing in the direction of the departing plane. All were bowing deeply to show their gratitude. No one really relaxed until the plane crossed the border, but they reached Unhao with no trouble. Jack Hudson taxied the plane to a neat stop and whistled in relief. Phew! Then briskly he turned to the group. We're going to refuel and take right off again, he announced. What's the hurry, Jack? Charlie asked. How's about letting me have a bath? Man, do you know how hot you and Biff have become since you went inside? There have been spies all over the camp. You and Biff aren't even to get out of this plane. Biff's things and yours are all packed. I've got 'em in the luggage compartment. Soon as this crate is refueled, it's off for Hong Kong. You can dunk the body there. But what about you, Jack? Oh, they don't want me. It's you two got the information they want to keep from getting out. I don't know what you know, and I don't want to. They don't know I've crossed into the big sea. Biff looked at Chubba. Unashamed tears filled the native boy's eyes. Biff choked up. Don't worry, Chubba, we'll meet again, he said, and meant it. Muscles ruffled Chubba's dark hair and said, Chum, next year you and I go stateside, and we'll visit this character. Muscles gave Biff an affectionate punch on the chin. See you soon, he said, as he and Chubba left the plane. They made Hong Kong safely. Biff and his uncle found a U.S. military policeman who took them to the consulate. There they reported their discovery to an amazed official. You have performed a great service for your country, the embassy official said solemnly, and added with a faint smile, although you should have your passports taken away for such a foolhardy venture. I know you're right, sir, Charles Keene said, but I would like to ask a favor of you. Can you get us out of Hong Kong? So fast it will make your head swim. Diplomatically speaking, we don't want you around here. There's a jet bomber taking off for Honolulu in an hour. You'll be on it. From there, you're on your own. 2 hours later, Biff and his uncle were winging over the blue Pacific, homeward bound, and sound asleep. End of chapter 22. End of The Mystery of the Chinese Ring by Andy Adams.